the Eastonmade 37D with the attached conveyor. Let's take a closer look. I've had a few questions, a few comments asking about some of the features and some of the specs on this Eastonmade 37D with the attached conveyor. One of them being, what are those wheels up there on the top of the conveyor for? So I thought what I would do today, just give a little walk around, give a little look at how this works, how it operates, and some of those features. I will apologize that there has been a big release of pine pollen this past week. So there is a green dust covering everything around here. So the Eastonmade 37D, the D stands for this right here, the Kubota D902 diesel engine. That is what powers this unit. Again, I'm just going to give kind of like a brief overview. I'm not going to get into all the technical specs because, to be honest, I do not know all the technical specs concerning this engine and all that stuff. So I'm going to tell you what I know and show you what I can. So right here, right off the bat, there's these two levers. They control the conveyor. And there's been a lot of questions and comments concerning whether or not the conveyor chain speed is adjustable. And right now it is not. This lever runs the chain forward or reverse. This lever raises and lowers the conveyor itself. I am looking at potentially getting a control put on there to adjust and control the speed of the conveyor. So I'll have more details on that hopefully here in the future. The other quick thing is, if you were wondering last night on the Back 40 live stream, who took the plunge, who took the first plunge into the pond, I'll show you a quick little highlight of that coming up here at the end of the video. But yes, the first plunge has been taken into the pond. So on this side, we do have the log lift, and that is controlled right here with this lever. Lift it up, down. This lever controls the height of the wedge. So you can adjust the height of this box wedge. You do have some control over how thick or how big your splits will be. The other two levers right here, this is the full auto cycle valve. This lever controls the ram going forward. This one controls it coming back. You push them both together at the same time, and this full auto cycles goes out, pushes the wood through the wedge, and then retracts and comes back. So because of the attached conveyor on this 37D, the axle and the wheels are located right here underneath the table, instead of halfway between the front and the back of the splitter, which you typically see on log splitters that don't have an attached conveyor. So what that does is it moves the axle of the wheels over there, and you have this nice big working area next to your log lift where you can run the controls of the log splitter, and you have a lot of room to move around. You're not kind of cramped in there. You don't have to run it from the other side. You can run it from either side, but it is nice to be able to be on the same side of as the log lift, load your rounds up, and have plenty of room to move around. The other nice thing I'm really starting to notice is just the advantage of having that pullback arm with like this box wedge. I've never run a box wedge before, so when I would run like 4-ways or 6-way wedges, single wedges, I'd always have to manually pull the pieces, the resplits back, the bigger pieces back manually. The pullback arm right there takes that all out of the equation. You pretty much stand here and push these two levers, and everything is done for you. It splits the round. What needs to be resplit is brought back and dropped in, where you can then just hit the levers again, and the cycle repeats. Now I do have the legs for the conveyor set at the lowest level they will go. So at the lowest level that the support legs are for the conveyor, the height to the top of the conveyor chain is about 7 feet. So 7 feet to the top of the chain there with the leg set at the lowest setting. I'm going to raise this thing up now and we'll adjust these legs and we'll see how high you can possibly have this. One quick thing, if you're wondering, the width of the wheelbase here is around 5'10", almost 6 feet. All right, let's start this up and check out how this conveyor folds up and lifts up. All right, so this is the top, the highest setting you can have for the legs of the conveyor. So this is the highest setting for the height of the conveyor. And if you take a look at that, that is a pretty steep angle to be sending wood up. But I'm sure that you could send pieces up. This conveyor, it would grab the wood and send it up that high. So how high is that? Well, let's find out. Jeez! The height is a little over 12 feet. 12 feet, 3 inches. So 12 feet, 3 inches at the very height of as high as the conveyor will go. So will this send wood up? Well, let's find out. Throw a couple pieces in here. We'll see if the wood makes it up this height. So even at that angle, it does send the wood up the conveyor, no problem. All right, so now to take the conveyor down and fold it up, we need to lower those legs and then fold them up. So there's a locking pin right here, and there's some holes on the legs of the conveyor that you can just slide that in, or lift these up, slide that pin in, and that holds the legs in place. Now with the legs folded up, we can lower the conveyor down. So with the conveyor all the way down, and the wheels resting on the ground, it's just a matter of unhooking these latches right here. There's one on each side. And with those latches unhooked now, what's going to happen is I will raise the conveyor up, and this is the pivot point right here. So this is going to raise up, the conveyor is going to fold apart, and those wheels are going to go along the ground and bring it in. And there we go. The conveyor is now folded up. And if you were going to transport this If you're just moving it, in a short distance, like around the yard somewhere, no big deal. But if you were traveling down the road, you strap that together and you're good to go. So there is a look at the 37D with the attached conveyor folded up. And then what happens is when you want to unfold it, it's just to repeat the process, except the opposite way, obviously, backwards. You would lower the conveyor. As you lower it, the wheels hit the ground, but you lower the conveyor down until it's flat. You hook in the latches on the sides, and then raise it up, drop the legs, and you are set. Good to go. In the previous videos when I've been running this and using the box wedge, some of you have noticed that on some cycles, the ram kind of slows down a little bit. And the one thing that I don't know if a lot of people understand, those of you who split wood a lot, you probably realize this and you know what's going on, but let me show you what's happening. So in your typical piece of wood, like oak, you can see the grain, the pattern of the grain. And when you're splitting across this grain, when it's like this, it splits nice and easy. So if you imagine the wedge getting pushed both on this side and the top side, because on the box wedge, that's what you have. You have wedges at different angles, perpendicular to each other. So you have a wedge going across this grain and a wedge going across this grain. So wood like this is going to split real nice, and it's going to just fly right through. You hardly even notice any slowdown in the ram. It's just going to whoosh, push right through. There are pieces, however, that end up looking like this. And this is what's going on inside of the round of wood. There's cross grains, there's knots. Like you can see, look at the size of that knot. Here's an example of some cross grain where there maybe was a branch union, big branch growing off this way. You have split grain, you have cross grain. So if you imagine the wedge, perpendicular wedges now, pushing through this wood, it's going to slow down a little bit. I don't care what machine you're running, how many tons of pressure you have, how many horsepower. Stuff like that is going to slow it down. And it doesn't even have to be that bad. Like you can have, like for instance right here. Here's an old nub, a branch union. There's another one. So inside of this round, there's a lot going on with the grain of the wood and which way it's running. And so when you're pushing wedges through that, that will tend to sometimes slow it down a little bit. And that's where a lot of times you'll see me in videos changing how the round is sitting in there. Because I look at those things, I see those things, I pay attention to those things because it does make a difference. And so I'll sometimes rotate the round after it's been split one time. It's just easier on the machine, easier on the wedges, and yeah. Once you start splitting enough wood, you tend to see those signs, and you kind of just have to adapt to them and move your round around to move the round around. Round, round, baby, right round. So that's why sometimes, yes, the ram does slow down a little bit because it's forcing all of those different angles of wedges through wood like that. So there is just a little walk around of the Eastonmade 37D. And now, what I know you've been waiting for, now is the time to see who took the plunge into the pond last night on Friday Night Live. So here you go. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this walk around. See you next time. Stay safe, have fun, and be cool.